Okay. Kuntam.
She's working on Thai. Right. I'll talk in Thai into it. Just speak into it, huh? Don't poke your eye. John? John? You need to come here.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen.
It's KK Park. KK Park, Bamban, Golden Triangle Special Economic Zone in Chinatown and Sihanoukville. Yeah, Sihanoukville.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand. I'm Gwen Robinson, past president and editor-at-large at Nikkei Asia. And as you know, we're all here tonight to listen to some real experts on the topic of cyber fraud, crypto, and technology in the Mekong region, projections and shifting threats. So I think we've got quite a full panel tonight with some excellent insights coming up. I'll just quickly introduce the panel. From my immediate right is Jessica Chua. She's Vice President, Crystal Intelligence, which is a group that supports financial institutions and government agencies to investigate money laundering, cyber fraud, and other financial crimes through analysing blockchain data. Next to her is Benedict Hoffman, Deputy Regional Representative, UNODC Regional Office for Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Next to him is John Wojcik, Regional Analyst, Organised Crime and Threat Monitoring for UNODC's Regional Office for Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Next to him, at the very end, is Police Colonel Jesada Burinsuchat, Superintendent of the Cyber Security Unit for the Royal Thai Police Cybercrime Investigation Bureau. As you all know, I think the Mekong region has really come into focus, first with a lot of an upsurge of scandal and controversy over these scam centres that we first came to our attention in Cambodia, down in Sihanoukville, with lurid tales of human trafficking, scamming, and all kinds of crime coming out of there. And then moved across to Myanmar, where I think you've seen a lot of articles about these scam centres like Shui Koko, which is immediately down across the Thai border around Mae Sot. But also from late last year, we saw the incredible conflicts around the northern border scam centres of around the Chinese Myanmar border, and a lot of activity and arrests and apprehensions there. So this panel takes it much further than that, way beyond it, to really show how way beyond scam centres we've seen an upsurge of the kind of really sophisticated, highly technological driven cybercrime into the areas you're about to hear about. So I'd like to hand over to Benedict to kick off the whole thing. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Gwen. Can anyone? Yeah, I think it works, right? Good evening, everyone. Thanks again, Gwen, for the introduction, and thanks for everyone to be here today. We're here to talk about, as Gwen was saying, about things like scam centers, technology-enabled crime, and how these things are adopted by transnational organized crime in the region. But before I get into that, I also want to give a bit of a broader context on transnational crime in the region, because we've seen a lot of growth, not just in that area, but also in other crime-related areas, especially drug production. And can we go to the next slide? Thanks. If you look at this slide, for example, right? So this shows the seizures of methamphetamine in Southeast Asia and East Asia region. And if you look at the tendency, we all thought that in 2020, 2019, 2020, we'd seen a shift towards synthetic drug production, and we all thought that was high. And then we had a slight dip in 2022, but now what we've seen is that we continue to see increases in seizures. At the same time that we're seeing increases in seizures, we're also seeing a continued decrease in price in the next slide, which basically goes to show that there is just more production happening in the region. And the reason I want to point this out is because we're not just talking about an increase in production when it comes to synthetic drugs and methamphetamine, but it's really an increase in production at really, really high levels. So the amount seized, as was shown on the previous slide, last year was 190 tons of methamphetamine. And this is something that is absorbed by populations, whether it's in this region or in countries surrounding this region. And it's quite significant to think that further growth is even possible, but the situation with organized crime that we're going to describe today and talk about today has really created the environment for this growth to happen. If we go to the next slide, please. Similar to synthetic drugs, I just also want to show that also other drug production is on the increase. The graph and the map that you see there refers to opium cultivation in Myanmar, which is very much tied to the socioeconomic situation in the country. It's a little bit different from synthetic drug production in the way that this kind of drug production includes farmers and the way that they feed into the economy. But at the end of the day, what we're seeing is a continued increase of production. And so it feeds into this broader growth of the criminal environment that we're seeing in the region. The next slide, please. However, the one thing that we wanted to talk mainly about is the issue of scam centers. And what you see on this map here is the location of some of the main scam centers or clusters of scam centers in the Mekong region, especially with focus on the border areas of Myanmar, as you will see. And there's a reason for that. We've traditionally seen criminality flourish in Myanmar's border areas, just because there's always been governance challenges that made it very difficult to address these challenges in the past. But this is something that we've obviously seen grow further over the past 3-4 years since 2021. And the interesting thing here is, so if you've been following this issue around the scam centers, right? If you looked at this map a year ago, let's say, it probably might have looked quite similar because it's quite small up here. But if you look at the dots, they're actually getting more. And they're also getting more dispersed. And so in addition to this message that we are continuing to see growth in this industry, the one point that we want to point out is that we're also seeing an increased disbursement of the industry, right? And one thing that's really triggered that is some of the responses that we've seen from governments, from law enforcement in the region, especially Operation 1027 last year in northern Myanmar, which I think most people are aware of from the media, which is basically a response from driven by Chinese law enforcement against scam centers and telecom fraud centers in northern Myanmar, which really caused the displacement from displacement. And it's been quite effective in shutting down operations in that particular part of Myanmar, but at the same time, it's just allowed many of the actors involved to simply move on and move to other parts of Myanmar. And we're seeing this displacement within Myanmar. For example, now we're also seeing some degree of displacement even from the more southern parts of Myanmar, like displacement from Myawaddy more towards more southern parts around Three Pagoda Pass and elsewhere. But the direction is the same. It stays in the border areas, right? And the same is the case for other parts of the region. So we're also seeing displacement into other parts of the region, right? We've seen displacement into special economic zones where some of these industries and some of these scam centers and casinos associated with them have been growing. And and the same goes for the other way around too. So whenever there is enforcement pressure that might not be in Myanmar's border areas, but that might be in Cambodia or in Laos or in other parts, then what we're seeing is essentially displacement from these places into other areas where there's less enforcement. If we can go to the next slide. The growth that we've seen, one more, no?
Seems like it's frozen.
Okay, well, I'll talk through it and it'll come.
There you go.
The growth that we've seen is not only relating to the number of scam centers though, but it's also to the way that they've set up, right? And if you look at the satellite imagery here, this is KK Park in Myanmar, which is quite a notorious place. Many people would have read about it in the news. If you look at the difference between 2019 and 2024, it's quite significant what's been built, right? And this is just one example of many, right? The same, if you go up to the Golden Triangle Special Economic Zone on the border between Thailand and Laos, you're seeing something very similar. You go a few years back, you know, you'd have a few buildings spread out here and there. And if you go there now, there's a whole city that's grown around the casino that was set up there about 10 years ago. So we're seeing not just a growth in the numbers, but also a growth in the physical infrastructure. And the other thing that's come with that has been like real professionalization and sort of the creation of a criminal service economy with the influx of different service providers. So it's not just the physical infrastructure that's really developed and that's really grown, but it's also the sort of the macroeconomic ecosystem that's grown around it that's become more complicated, and that's really created the basis for the broader growth we've seen in the region. Can we look at the next slide? Again, on this page here, you'll see a few examples, like I just mentioned. The Golden Triangle Special Economic Zone is, for example, one of these pictures. Similarly, there's examples from different countries in the region. There's you have an example from the left upper corner from Cambodia, Sihanouk Will, KK Park, which you saw the satellite imagery on the right upper corner, and on the lower right corner you have a compound in the Philippines that was raided about a year ago. So this goes to show that this kind of infrastructure exists across the region, really. It's not something that's specific to one particular country or one particular border areas. But criminals setting them up have been really effectively in using governance challenges, in using loopholes, like, for example, the POGO system that had been set up in the Philippines, which was supposed to offer a legal way for offshore online gambling operations to operate, but it's really been used effectively by organized crime for their purposes. And you see the same in all other parts of the region. It's just that the loophole looks differently everywhere. If we go to the last one then. And just to show that before you saw the outside, this is what it looks like on the inside. And the one message on this is that there's a lot of people involved in this, right? And there's been a lot of talk about human trafficking for forced criminality. That's something that has brought a lot of attention to the issue, and it's something that we continue to see as a major problem. But with that professionalization, we're saying also this is something that is getting more complicated, because we're seeing more people who are actually professionally involved in this kind of industry. And if you look at the technological advancements that have been made, it's actually quite logical that this is happening, because you simply do not need that many people at some point anymore to run, WhatsApp-based scams or to run like kind of these chat groups where they would scam people. This is something that if you have someone who is smart enough to program a computer well, you can reach many more people than you would reach before with hundreds or thousands of people, right? And this is not a shift that's happening from 0 to 100 now, or it's not something that happens overnight, but it's definitely a trend, and it's also something that makes it more complicated to deal with the issue and to address the issue. So the key trends, just before I hand over to some of the colleagues who will get into it in a bit more detail, that we've seen is really, on the one hand, what I mentioned, the professionalization, and this professionalization feeding into what we basically term a criminal service economy that has really grown in the Mekong region. And what that has done is basically bringing different types of criminality together. So you have people involved in money laundering, for example. You have people who are specialized in setting up scam centers. You have people who are specialized in in running and developing and disseminating malware, for example, right? And so you start to see service providers coming into the region, bringing different technologies, and organized crime kind of bringing them all together around these centers, and that's really been at the base of a lot of this growth that we're seeing. And without that growth would probably not have been possible. And the last point I want to make is just that all of this is also very much driven and based on the adoption of technology. I mentioned it several times already, but we've really seen quite significant advancements in how new technologies have been used by these organized crime groups. This is a region where there's a lot of talk, about digitalization, bringing the, economies, bringing societies to a digital level. But actually, if you look at it, the one place, especially in countries like, whether it's Laos, Myanmar, Cambodia, or some of these places where that's really happening, are actually those places. That's where a lot of the innovation is happening. That's where a lot of the digitalization is happening. And that's also what makes it so difficult to grasp them, because dealing with these technologies is something that's very difficult from a law enforcement perspective. It's very difficult from a regulatory perspective. And it makes addressing the issue much more complicated. And it's also something that tells us that the direction that this is going is probably one that from our perspective is going to continue to be quite negative. Because we continue to see this inflow of technology. It's getting more and more difficult for governments to catch up with that. We're seeing some technologies used and misused by organized crime, which are actually meant to be, which have a very positive, legitimate purpose, right? I mean, we talk about Starlink sometimes, and I think we might talk about it a bit later as well. Starlink, has very, a legitimate purpose of bringing internet to places that don't have it, right? But these places use it very actively for their purposes, for exactly the same purpose, just misusing it for their purposes. And don't get me wrong, there are technologies which are just problematic as they are. If you look at ransomware, at different types of cyber criminality, there isn't a lot of positive use for those, but we're seeing those being adopted just as much as we're seeing these quote-unquote normal technologies. So where I want to end is just to say that we've seen growth in this industry, which we previously actually thought was not possible, and a lot of people would look at this and say, this has been around for a while, why hasn't it ended? And that's a good question. What we see instead is continued growth. But the main problem that we see is that given the basis that has been at this growth, this convergence of different crime types, of technology, of a very sophisticated underground banking system to launder the proceeds, given the presence of all this, it's very clear that we will continue to see growth in the future as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Benedict. I think one of the most concerning things of your findings, and I believe UNODC has a new report coming out next week about all this, so that's also one to watch for. It will be, I think, widely available. But is this issue of the technological advances in cybercrime outpacing the law enforcement authorities' ability to keep across it. So I think that's why we're very particularly glad to welcome Police Colonel Jesada tonight. So you can tell us about the challenges being faced by particularly the Royal Thai Police, where you are in the middle of a region that's exploding with all this. So perhaps you can shed some light on your thoughts.
I think it really is. I got a cyber attack challenge, so the computer is not working now. So I will speak without the presentation, but if it comes out, I will show the picture later. So I come from Cybercrime Investigation Bureau, from the Cyber Security Unit. My role is to investigate cyber attacks, but most of my responsibility, mostly nowadays, is on scams. Because as you know, that scam is the most concerning issues in Thailand and around the world. So in Thailand, I would like to show the first picture about the, okay, it's coming.
Oh, there it is. Great.
Okay.
I think it's on another computer. You need to tell me.
Okay. Next, please.
It's up now.
Okay. So from the picture, you can see that Thailand and our neighboring country is on the red spot of the cyber scams centers. and most are traffic people and also forced labor, and also relating to the online fraud. And it can spread out throughout the world to the other regions. In the past 6 years, when I first acknowledged about scam centers and telecom fraud or call center, at that time there was little cases in Thailand, but nowadays it's quite a big number. Next, please. So this can be the global issues in the coming times. Next, please. Next, please. Okay, some of these slides I would like to show you about the situation in Thailand. Imagine if you have the mobile phone in your hand, you can see that most of the cases in Thailand, half of the cases concerning online commercial fraud or scams on services or sales. So half of the cases are regarding these issues. Next, please. But the number in Thailand, number of cybercrime in Thailand is not unique. If you compare to the country like Singapore or Australia, I think the number is similar. If you have a good statistic record of cyber incidents, Thailand is not different from many other countries which has a good record of cybercrime. Next, please. Next, please. Okay. So basically, the general idea about the scams, mostly the criminals are publicized about all the, the fake news and scams on the social media. Once you can get into it, you can become privately communicate with them, and after that they will scam you or fraud you and exploit you in different ways. Whether it's financial losses, sometimes it can be the personal data. Deceive you to download the malwares, and nowadays you can become another suspect as well if they deceive you to transfer money to another victims. So this kind of exploitation is really complicated, and nowadays we can see a lot of the victims can be the suspect as well. Next, please. So I don't think you can see the number, but I will summarize all the categories in Thailand. So I just mentioned that half of the cases are about commercial online shopping, right? So next two types is about online loan scam and job scams. You can see that even you want money from someone, you're going to see the job online or want to loan money online, but you end up with losing money. So you can see how the scammers are really cleverly organizing, social organized engineering until you can pay the money to the one who you really want to get the money from, right? So that the top 2 and 3 types of the cases. And you can see a lot of the cases happen because in Thailand a lot of people know how to use technology, but the digital literacy may be not quite enough, and the technology of payment and all the big data, big digital platform, Thailand is the most user in many platforms. So that's encourage all the categories in these 2 types. So number 4 is about investment scams. Even it's number 4 in terms of number, but it causes most damage in comparison with other types, because investment scam, a lot of people don't really know or aware of this crime until they lost all the money. So that's why the damage account for about 1/3 of all the total loss. And number five is about telecom fraud, right? Okay, telecom fraud or call center scams. So I will mention, elaborate on the call center scams. So this is the most frequent type that you might experience yourself, right? You can get the call from any person calling you, but if you are foreigner, maybe they speak Thai to you. You are lucky that you don't understand what they're talking about. But mostly the Thai people, they get scammed and they end up with transferring money to these people. So number 6 is impersonation scams. They just call you and tell you that, oh, this is your old good friends, you remember me? If you don't, you just remember memory in the mobile phone and you just memory it. 1 month later, they call you, oh, okay, this is my good friend. And maybe I borrow your money for 10,000 baht, something like that. I don't know if you gonna lend him, but in Thailand, Thai people, a lot of people, give the money to the good old friend who they never thought that who they are, right? It's similar happen in Singapore, in many Chinese-speaking countries as well. So number 7 is about reward or price scams. It's similar to the number 6. Remote app Trojan is something that they ask you to download the malware. So for those who using the Android system, it's likely that you can get this kind of scams easily. For those who use Apple or iOS, you might a little bit safer. But so far, we haven't got some reports from the iOS. Yeah, but it's the thing that you might be aware, because once you download this remote access Trojan, so they can suck all your money from the bank accounts. So that's the most serious. But it seems that this case is decreasing. So it used to be like 20 cases a day. Now we have about 10 cases a day for all Thai people. So roughly we have about 7 so far. In the past 2 years, we have about 700 cases per day. But in the last 5 months, we have more than 1,000 cases per day. That's because a lot of the crime report. Maybe people trust the system of the government, they report crime more than before. And now Thailand, we have a law that can return the money or freeze the money proactively. So that's why we encourage people to report crime, even it's small amount of money. Okay, so I have the social media. So if you can see, I don't know if you scroll on Facebook, you will see a lot of the, on your left hand side, in 1 minute, I scroll, I see about 10 scams on the page, right? If you see this scam page, like you can see like a microphone, speakers, or maybe Mampodam Sorayut, and you go and buy some things, and you lost money. You go to see the police online, and on your right hand side, 1 minute, you can see about 10 pages about the scam law enforcement page. So this is something that unacceptable. We talked to Meta many times that they should improve this technology to prevent this kind of scam. Okay. Yeah, they sponsor some of the page. They pay money to the company because they can show some more presence, right? So this is something that unacceptable for Thailand, that the big tech company should do something better. But indeed, Facebook is the most cooperative platform with us. But even 1% of perfection fewer, they can create a lot of damage because they have a lot of the users following on Facebook. Yeah, you can use the platform to make a false document and ask for more money from the victims for investigation and operation. So victims get re-victimized by this kind of social media. Okay, I just talked to like this. This is the loan application. They just create a fake money, fake credit that you can get some money loan or some credit that you trust them, and after that you losing all the money. Okay, okay, this is the, nowadays the scam center. In the past year, we asked the scammers to open the video call so that they could not show their face, but nowadays they could show the video call, and they can use the AI to make the face moving and is more similar to the real person. In the past, they used to be under the table and speak like real people, but nowadays they can use the AI to pretend to be like a real person. This is and nowadays we have some more challenges about the SIM cards, about the Starlink, about all the connection that come, with many ways. And Line, if you use Line, be careful, because Line, you can make the account with any face, any name, and I have to say that we cannot get information from Line. Line is the less cooperative, but maybe most popular private chat that Thai people would like to use. Yeah, they can pretend like officers asking for online complaint and they ask you for more money. And the remote access Trojan, the banks try to counter all the measure and the scammers or the criminals try to change counter measure. But now I think we quite a little bit more successful in tracking this type of scam because we can deal with the banks and the telecom to put them together and prevent it on time. But still we have about 10 cases a day, every day. Okay, so let me talk about the organized crime. In the past, we know that there's a boss, right? And then the boss is not in the country, but he have like a master, like a manager who control all the services. And everything that you see is like as a service. They don't have to know each other. They can buy as a service. Like you open the 7-Eleven, you can have only the money to invest, and whoever can run your business. So we want to arrest the boss, but even we can arrest the boss, I'm not sure if we can disrupt all the criminal networks because one boss gone, another boss can come because all the service and infrastructure already in place. Yeah, so the more challenging is to find the big boss by connecting the manager to the boss, but that one is in the country, the boss is overseas. But mostly in Thailand, we assume that a lot of bosses live in Thailand. But we have to find a way to connect the manager to the boss. In the case of Operation Trust No One, we can arrest the big boss because we can follow the manager and the money, the cash that they send, and follow surveillance them to the big villa. So we can chase and arrest all the gangs. But it's very rare case, rare operation. We cannot make it successful like that. So what we need to do is to be regulate all the services, whether it's a financial or the telecommunication. So around Thailand, you can see a lot of the challenges across Thailand. Oh, sorry for the letter. Yeah, okay. So we have cooperation with all the neighboring countries, but it's very little when comparing with Thai police with USA, China, Japan, or Russia. Or I can say that around Thailand, maybe we have the very least cooperation. It's not systematic, it's very individuals, and it's really not inconsistent. So that's the issue that we're facing. Okay, so I try to make it quick. Oh, cyber attack again. It's not moving. Okay. So Thailand now we have like an online complaint system where we ask people to report crime anywhere, anytime. They don't have to worry about the jurisdiction of the police station, so they can go any police station they want, and they will put the information in the system, and we will analyze and assign the case to the police station that they want to go. So that's why we can get a lot of information. And now we have this anti-scam center where we combine all the services, the banks, telecom, and all the regulators that can help the police or law enforcement to tackle crimes. So that would be the thing that we learn from our counterparts from Taiwan, Malaysia, Singapore. And now we urge all the country to have the anti-scam center so we can have a good cooperation to tackle crime in each country. Okay, so this slide may be too small for you, but I will show you the lifespan of one money move. Mostly nowadays, a lot of money moves, if they open the bank account from day one, right, they can wait until 5 days. And they will use the money move only 3 or 4 days, but they can do like 100 transactions. In this case, they have about 102 transactions, and they can transfer 3.9 million baht. And then the Moore account is frozen. And they can run a new Moore account and they control it. So you can see that one Moore account, they can use only a few days. But a lot of people report. You see in the yellow one is the time that the victim reports crime. So if they can have one more account, now it may be 3,000 baht, 4,000 baht, or even 10,000 baht. But they can earn money like 1 million, 2 million, 3 million to transfer money, laundering money. And now we have about 8 measures to freeze the money. Today, if you get reported about cybercrime, and if your money account, bank accounts in the system, you can expect that your bank accounts will be frozen, and all of your bank accounts in any banks will be frozen. So now we have a very harsh measure against the money moves. But even so, we freeze about 500,000 bank accounts. We frozen individuals, about 50,000 individuals, but still a lot of money move accounts. But we can see a trend coming down only in these 2 months, and we have to wait and see if the crime rate is still declining. Okay, this one I'm showing about the good cooperation, a case of good cooperation, but maybe it's too long for my talk already. Okay, I just pass it. So I recently went to Interpol Lyon and to World Economic Forum, and we tried to send the message that Thailand won't allow any scam center in the country. So we not just only say that, but we assure all the law enforcement officers. If you are working in law enforcement, you know that if you know that any scam center in Thailand, you can contact any police, right? Because we don't allow, we can arrest a lot of the scam centers. And if you are law enforcement in Thailand, you know that if you contact local police, they don't cooperate. You can contact the CAB, you can contact the CCAB, you can talk many law enforcement, because in Thailand there are a lot of law enforcement that you can get access and ask for requests. That's why scam center don't last really long in Thailand. And we want this model to be repeated in our neighboring countries. We want they to be sincere and transparent in tracking down all the scam centers. If they can do the same, in this case, there was a scam center crackdown in Myanmar, and I need to admire the Myanmar police because they allow us to fly over to Myanmar and take all the evidence from the computer and get back to Thailand. We do the same to our colleague as well. Recently, we had a crackdown in Nakhon Si Thammarat scam center and call center, and the Japanese police and Russians, when they come, we send all the information in the computer to them. We don't really care if it involves any official or anyone. So that should be the model that should be the same in our neighboring countries. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. Sorry.
Thank you. Very interesting. We can see the Thai police are up against a lot. Just a quick aside, Colonel. We recently heard reports of we recently heard reports of the cooperation being increased between Thai police and others like Laos and others. So I gather you've opened there's a centre now in Chiang Mai, and also some other cooperation going along with other countries on specifically, is this on scam centres or other forms? Or I know you've got a lot of cooperation on drugs, but this is more focused on your kind of area?
You mean the center, the
Yeah.
anti-scam center?
Is it anti-scam centre?
Yeah, it's
So
in Bangkok,
this is a new thing? No, in Chiang Mai? No?
Oh, I don't know, but yeah, but the scam center, anti-scam center 1441 is based in Bangkok. But you can just call the 1441 and you can ask for reporting crimes and help anywhere.
Right. No, this was about cooperation with other countries' police.
Oh yeah, I think we have a lot of cooperation. You can see on the news that a lot of the investigation and crackdown operation with all the law enforcement from the many countries, right? US, the UK, European countries. Yeah, you can see all the news. I used to work at the Interpol before, so we don't centralize international cooperation in Thailand. So you can get to very low rank officer or very senior one if you want anything. So we don't have that kind of like a protocol to report or contact only the foreign affairs people.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
very
that's why
interesting.
I think that Thailand, we can say 100% that we won't allow scam center to be in the country, and we have the mechanism that we can crack down on this one. Yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So I'll turn to John now, who I know you spend a lot of time on the web and many other platforms. So you're going to share some of your insights with us.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thanks very much, Gwen. I do spend a lot of time on the internet. It's a great opening line, right? No, it's a pleasure to be here, and really grateful to be here with a great panel of experts. We launched here in January another report on casinos, underground banking, transnational organized crime, and all those good things. But we're back again to talk today about sort of the emerging threat environment that we're observing, which will be reflected in an upcoming analysis. So the presentation today is really going to be focused on sort of a snapshot of that threat environment in Southeast Asia, building on several years of analysis. We consult extensively with partners across the region, across East and Southeast Asia. We've been conducting consultations on this convergence issue over the last 2, 3, 4 years, really. And yeah, I think this will build very well on the presentation of the previous panelists as well. And so we really started with a simple question a couple of years back, which was, what is the nexus between the casinos and transnational organized crime, but specifically cyber-enabled fraud, which was proliferating across the region, and the scam centers. So as of 2023, we were able to map out about 340 land-based casinos, licensed and unlicensed, across the region. What we realized in doing so was that not only were these functioning as casinos, but also as venues hosting a broad range of other organized crime activities, from drug staging to human trafficking, cyber-enabled fraud, large-scale money laundering operations, and much more. And ultimately, when we put these zones up together against the special economic zones in the region, we see also very interesting patterns emerge, which are that they virtually run parallel to those casinos. And sorry, just gonna have a sip of water. And the reason that these special economic zones and other special regions across the region have been targeted so extensively is because they effectively operate as, in some cases, law enforcement no-go zones. And many clear cases of infiltration of organized crime have also been observed by our office, by other law enforcement agencies who report to us, and so on. And fundamentally, what this has done is created the necessary conditions for transnational organized crime groups, as well as non-state armed groups engaged in criminal activity to flourish and thrive. So as the law enforcement pressure has really kind of come down across the region, we noted Cambodia, we noted places across the Philippines, and really scattering across the region. There's really been a spillover, like I think past panelists had mentioned. And so we see this again with Operation 1027, again in northern Myanmar, just about a year ago, where the criminal groups were, on one hand, either detained by law enforcement authorities off of the back of that, or simply picked up their equipment and moved again. And so we refer to this in some cases as regulatory arbitrage or jurisdiction shopping, to keep it simple. And the criminal ecosystem and really the service economy has kind of ballooned off of the back of these groups moving beyond their initial sort of bases of operations and cascading across various parts of the region. And so, in addition to the venues that these physical casinos have provided historically, we also started asking ourselves about, again, the reason behind, or the attractiveness of the casino industry being utilized by criminal groups. And so fundamentally, casinos, when unregulated or operating illegally, are able to serve as high-volume cash businesses operating 24/7, effectively processing both recreational gambling proceeds, but equally criminal proceeds. And so in the way that we've come to understand it is that illegal betting can ultimately serve as a conduit for criminal proceeds. And this is really the main takeaway of the past threat analysis launched earlier this year. And concerningly, we also observe increasing integration of cryptocurrency and virtual assets in this shadow industry. And ultimately, also, the casinos are able to serve as a legal, fiscal, and regulatory cover for criminal groups. And it's interesting, you know, one question that I'll pose to everybody here is, virtually all of the online casinos or online gambling platforms in Southeast Asia are prohibited or criminalized. Thailand, of course. And so the question is, how do you service a multi-billion-dollar criminal enterprise which is operating in plain sight and is estimated to total hundreds of billions of dollars annually in the region alone? And so we heard from the police colonel about the money mules and money laundering at scale, and this is effectively how they've been able to do that. So if you try to sign up to an illegal online gambling platform targeting Thailand, you'll find that you're not actually sending money to the casino itself, you're sending money to a money mule account. And they rotate these very quickly. They do the same thing with cryptocurrency, and it makes it a really optimal solution for moving money across borders in an unregulated way. So 2 cases to highlight here. Police colonel mentioned Operation Trust No One, but we have 2 other ones here reported from April this year, totaling over $1 billion estimated processed through these money laundering networks. Operation Black Hat and Operation The Purge. So we can see by this one chart put up by Royal Thai Police earlier this year. On one hand, we have the scam centers, we have the illegal online casinos, also processing some of these funds, and drug trafficking, really kind of demonstrating that convergence. And there's really just tons and tons of these cases that have been reported by authorities across the region over the past few years as the awareness has been raising. And in addition to the casinos and online gaming, there's really been quite a notable shift with respect to the cryptocurrencies and high-risk virtual asset service providers, which I know Jess will speak to some extent. And so East and Southeast Asia really has experienced a boom and high popularity of stablecoin use. And for those of you who might not be aware, stablecoins are pegged to the US dollar, so they sort of hedge against that volatility that other cryptocurrencies experience. For this reason, it becomes very reliable for organized crime groups. So virtually all of the cases that have been reported in the case of things like pig butchering in this region really depend on stablecoins. And the reason being is that crypto really hit the region in some ways overnight, and it started to really take over many parts of the illicit economy. In many of those hubs, it's quite critical. In the crypto space, you refer to this sometimes as the sunrise period, in which cryptocurrency hits a market, and you're able to give that country some time to regulate and enforce those regulations. In this case, we've had quite a prolonged sunrise period, and we can see crypto misuse really rampant across the region. And this ultimately creates massive opportunities for bad actors within the criminal ecosystem. So just to give you an example, again, with respect to some of the web browsing that I've been doing lately, we can really see quite a bit of service providers, really an overwhelming amount of service providers offering unlicensed, unauthorized, and virtually illegal underground banking and money laundering services, specifically targeting various stablecoins. And in addition to the high-risk virtual asset service providers, or VASPs, they specifically, I would say, leverage 3 main capabilities, being the cryptocurrency exchanges, the over-the-counter service providing, which is kind of like, I've put up here, a buyer and a seller connected through a third party, really like a trading floor, and very large peer-to-peer traders who are handling those transactions themselves. And probably most concerningly, in addition to the cyber-enabled fraud and drug trafficking links, there's also much more disturbing connections in relation to child sexual abuse material distribution vendors who leverage these ecosystems, human trafficking networks, and also, of course, being used for things like sanction evasion and proliferation finance. So a couple of examples that highlight those things. We have here one example involving effectively the region's largest high-risk virtual asset service provider, who really operates in a regulatory gray area in a country where cryptocurrency services as such are not permitted. The central bank has stated that they are unlicensed, they are unauthorized to do so, and they continue. This group's analysis of this group's on-chain activity reveals big connections to Lazarus Group attributed hacks, for instance, as well as many of those other activities which I discussed. And so at this point in time, some of the leading blockchain analytics companies have coverage of about $64 billion taking place in transactions over a 3-year time period. Police Colonel Jessida had mentioned also remote access Trojans and some of the other more sophisticated technological threats that have been reported in Thailand. And so the way that we sort of have come to understand this is that the underground banking system has sort of taken care of one critical piece of the business and allowed others to scale up. And we see this in the case of cyber-enabled fraud actors who have become far more sophisticated over the past 12 to 24 months. And specifically in the case of integrating generative artificial intelligence, deepfakes, and other malware. So I'll get into those in just a moment. But at the same time, one big catalyst here has also been the developments in data markets, underground data markets, and data products. So on one hand, we have standalone forums or marketplaces that specifically focus and specialize in selling stolen data. And on the other hand, we have a new type of malware referred to as info stealers. So info stealers are very subtle, they're very difficult to detect, they specialize in avoiding detection, and they effectively run a program on your device at all times, and they relay information regarding your browser history, your credentials, your cookies, and so on, ultimately enabling cyber-enabled fraud syndicates as well as more sophisticated cyber criminals to take advantage of those stolen pieces of information. So this is really widely available now on the internet, and it's really hooking up quite significantly and fueling the cyber-enabled fraud phenomenon in the region. We've also observed the indication of more widespread sophisticated malware use in the scam compounds, and specifically linking this back to crime as a service or malware as a service, in which less sophisticated actors might be able to rent a remote access Trojan, which I'll explain in a moment is basically a computer virus or mobile device virus that once on an infected device provides full command and control to the hacker or cyber criminal or fraudster. This can not only drain bank accounts and cryptocurrency wallets, but can equally steal sensitive information, can send text messages, can access one-time passcodes, all of these wonderful things, and really it's quite dangerous. So we have some soft attribution to groups based in the region who are also running cyber scams in quite some volume, also very much flexing their access to these tools. So this is effectively what it looks like from the cyber criminal side. So you can see every command which is executed on the mobile device is available and logged on the terminal controlled by the criminal group. So this lovely thing is also one of the varieties or variants of remote access Trojan that we've been able to detect, and this has also been raised by cybersecurity experts in the region. This is specifically called Gold Factory. It's a Gold Factory family of malware, and the difference with this, in addition to all of the capabilities I explained previously, it also steals your biometric data. So you can imagine the threat going from all of us receiving really annoying text messages on our mobile devices to much more sophisticated and sinister and dangerous phishing links and other being sent to us. On the side of deepfakes, and I really hope that the volume is off here. It's not.
Wait.
Please play. Okay,
That's all
I
right.
do apologize. So these are the services on offer now, specifically, explicitly targeting the criminal groups based in the region. Enough of that. And so in addition to, of course, the obvious applications to cyber-enabled fraud, right? We discussed impersonation scams, which are really kicking off in the region. This has a number of other capabilities. It can be used for money laundering and bypassing know your customer processes within banks. Banks have subsequently shifted because of this to facial recognition scans. We just saw the remote access Trojan harvesting biometric data that can then be used and deployed for these purposes. We have, of course, the threat of disinformation, which is quite significant globally, really. And I mean, there's really a number of very, I'm sure, exciting criminal possibilities for this dual-use technology. And then lastly, Benny had mentioned previously also Starlink. So this is quite a new development that was first reported by Royal Thai Police maybe 6 months ago. Since then, we've seen a number of other seizures being made. I think it's total over 100 units in the last 5 months or so. And naturally, this is quite useful technology for remote parts of the region who have historically lacked access to high-speed internet. And it can really be a game changer, I think, also for development. But at the same time, we've already been able to document quite widespread misuse and targeting of these satellites or terminals to various parts of the region that are known where this has been destined for cyber-enabled fraud. So on one hand, this is not only about improving their access to high-speed internet, but equally it's about improving their mobility, right? Imagine scam islands or scam boats. How much more difficult would that be to enforce, right? So that's about it for me, and I'm happy to take more questions and discuss over the course of the panel. But ultimately, you know, the regional threat environment is rapidly expanding, and the criminal ecosystem is becoming more innovative and evolving very quickly. The growing profits from transnational organized crime, from the multi-billion-dollar drug trade to the cyber-enabled fraud situation that we're dealing with now, quite clearly dwarfs several economies in the region collectively. And this system, or this industry, or these industries have necessitated really sophisticated, rapid, fast-paced underground banking and money laundering solutions. So again, casinos and increasingly crypto and high-risk or unregulated virtual asset service providers are really critical to this taking place. And off of the back of that, we see really this booming illicit economy full of technological innovation, full of service providers, a service economy really forming beneath it. And I think with that, maybe I'll hand it back over to Benny to discuss discuss what else UNODC is doing and what we need to see the region stepping into in order to address it.
Right. Sorry, can I just? Hello? Yeah, works again. Sorry, and I'll just 1 minute before we hand on to the last one. But just to say that, you know, if we're looking at the implications of all this, you know, like I said earlier, I think, you know, there's quite a lot of questions about why has this situation been around for such a long time, right? And if you look at the way that it's evolved, like I was saying earlier, I think that gives you some of the answers to that, right? But that also means that as governments in the region respond to this, they really need to move beyond current capacities. And we've heard, you know, quite good examples from Thailand, and I wholeheartedly agree. You know, if you look, for example, at the analysis, you know, at the capacities of CCIB or more generally the Royal Thai Police, and you compare that with some other agencies, enforcement agencies in the region, I mean, you're talking almost about a different planet that you're on, right? And at the same time, in some countries, we're seeing more effort towards having sort of a whole of government approach to address some of these issues, whereas in others, that is something that is really lacking in its entirety. And so that's something that we're really encouraging from our side. You see a few points up there. I'm not going to go through all of them, but two of them are really key. One is this the second one from the last is, you know, having a whole of government approach that really looks at this also not just as a law enforcement issue, because it's not something that, you know, police, sorry to say to you, but it's not something that police by itself can solve. It's not something that you can shut down with an operation, right? And what's needed is really a sort of broader social approach that includes a range of different government and non-government actors, including different regulators, financial regulators, telecom regulators, private sector. We heard about, you know, Meta and other companies, right? And the other point I would really point out is the first one on the slide, which is the need for more institutionalized information sharing and analysis, and that's something that Colonel Jessida has also been referring to. That you know, there is a lot of information sharing that's happening between different countries in the world around these issues, but especially as we look at the Southeast Asia region. You know, most of the countries have a lot of information on these issues. We know that because a lot of the stuff that John was talking about, he doesn't just find on the internet, but we hear about it from different agencies, from different people within governments. But they don't institutionally share that information with each other, and that's something that we're really pushing the region to do more on. So I'll stop here. Gwen, I'll give it
can
back
I
to you.
just add, I know you were based in Myanmar before, and obviously Myanmar is a huge problem in the region for many reasons. But one of those is what we keep reading about and hearing about, which is that actually there are links right through from the military itself to, you know, the scam centre, border guard forces, etc. So does that make it rather difficult to, in this sort of regional approach of sharing information and cooperating with authorities, you know, which I think is also a big problem for Interpol on the bigger scale, you've got countries like North Korea. So does that make cooperation a bit difficult? Maybe, yes, Benny, and maybe the Colonel might have.
If I maybe just start off, maybe Conjessida wants to add, but I think, you know, like I was saying earlier, I think, you know, we've traditionally seen a lot of challenges when it came to Myanmar. Is it off? Can you hear me? Yeah, that's better. So we've traditionally seen a lot of challenges when it came to Myanmar to addressing these issues. But that's something that's grown. I think I was saying that earlier as well, right? I think the situation has become, you know, quite significantly worse over the past years, as far as governance in the border region is concerned, but also as far as, you know, the potential for cooperation with Myanmar around these issues is concerned. And we, you know, and we sometimes, you know, we have a saying, I wouldn't say we have a laugh because it's not something to laugh about it, but it's, you know, I was talking earlier about this displacement of criminality in the region. Whenever there's enforcement pressure in, you know, one part of the region, things move to another part of the region, right? And kind of the end of that equation usually is that, you know, in the end it ends up in Myanmar. And so you can really see that's you know, in a region where you have a lot of challenges around cooperation, a lot of challenges around, you know, regulatory frameworks and enforcement, Myanmar is definitely a weak link, and it's you know, it's becoming more difficult to address that.
Yeah, Colonel, do you have a thought on cooperation, the difficulties of cooperating?
Yeah, you want me to add now?
Well, if
okay.
you want to.
Okay.
Only if you want to say something.
The idea is to try to put everyone has their own responsibility. So I mentioned in the first part of my talk that nowadays we cannot, we have to accept that the police or law enforcement or the government public services, they cannot act on any issues regarding cybercrime or cyber attacks. So we need a regulatory approach and also the cooperative models from the service provider. I explained a little bit about in the past 4 years when I start working in the CCAB. I have a meeting with the banks, the Bank of Thailand. We asked them to do a lot of things that nowadays it never happened. Because in the past they say that okay, it's all the personal data, they cannot act proactively because everything in the bank accounts is all reserved for personal data. And today they are quite very proactive in doing that. So imagine if you get a call center from maybe other countries and you happen to transfer money to that country. It's not just about the law enforcement that contact, communicate to get information. we need the the service provider, whether they are banks or telecoms or the internet service provider, to get information and send to the law enforcement and sharing among law enforcement. So it needs to be the whole comprehensive approach that we need to cooperate. It's not just only the law enforcement, but maybe the service provider, that they need to have a new model of cooperation, not just only stay in their own turf, but they need to be more proactive. So that I think that's the key challenge in our region, because they also have their own turf, not only the law enforcement, but also the service provider and the businesses.
Right. Thank you very much. So last but very not least, we're turning to Jessica at Crystal Intelligence. Oh, you're going to swap for the slides. Okay, John, you're over here. And as mentioned, Crystal is really focused on monitoring transactions across a wide range of virtual assets, cryptocurrencies on different blockchains. So I think, Jessica, you can explain some of that too. I'm sure there's others in this room apart from me that don't quite understand how it all comes together.
So, good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Jess, and I am representing Crystal today. There are many analytics tools in the market, but I'll make it less comparison, but a bit more on content focus. Ironically, today we did training with some of the United Nations officers, and most of it has been covered, so it's pretty easy to just reiterate. But I think the three panelists, the gentleman, has started a very good storyline, so I can continue from and pick up pieces where they just share. So, well, this is Crystal. I'm not going to go too focus on that. And this is me, so also less interesting compared to other three gentlemen. I will just go next. So maybe you would like to know that how these private companies like Crystal exist in the whole ecosystem. So like John's, one of his deck, there's something called placement, layering, and integration. I'm pretty much focusing into placement and layering because we do the fun stuff. Most of the criminals, when they try to do all the big scamming and they are trying to deposit money from somewhere and try to cash it out, this is where we come in and we provide the analytics and also the investigation to the user. In fact, my head of investigation, Andre, is here. Anything you can talk to him, Andre? Okay, so this is drawn by him. And just to give you a bit of overview, when you do money laundering, especially to come into the money laundering cases, you need to understand the MO. And it's very fun that these people will just try to inject money in all sorts of forms, hoping you don't know. Like what John's, he said is a sunrise issue. The first coin was minted, Bitcoin is minted in 2009. And FATF only opened the paper back in 2019. And today, they just recognize that cryptocurrency crime is in fact a cybercrime. So it took them about 14 years to get into this level. I think all the three gentlemen here share that this is something that, like Colonel Jessica also talked about, the partnership. It's been quite impossible 4 years ago for the banks to provide information like PDPA and all this. But now, because of the awareness and the acknowledgement in the market, people wanted to get in touch with all this evidence. And this is a very important graph. I mean, this is just one of the many graphs that we draw, but the reason is to check why the money flowing from, say, can you see this little screenshot? Is actually from
I think
this.
It's impossible to see from the floor, really.
But maybe I just narrate that. It's actually a pig butchering scam, and this guy trying to ask them for cashing out. And this is the way they will normally launder money. So if you can see that the little circle there, you can see that there are different symbols. Some of them will be, we call it clustering. That means that these wallets have interaction with multiple wallet addresses, have the same cases. We profile them, and these in the data, we use some algorithm, and it's called signaling. These will give us information how this money moved from wallet A to wallet B to wallet C. And then you can see that on this graph, you can see that one is OKX deposits, one is the two graphs here say wallet blocked by Tether. As mentioned in John's report, is USDT. Because people use USDT is because it's very liquid outside China. And most of this, I need help with technical glitch here. Hello? Yeah. So why stablecoin is widely used in this region, or rather the whole wide world, is because this is as good as using USD, because everywhere people will accept and easy to transfer. So imagine today, if you want to send money out from Russia to Dubai, you cannot go through SWIFT. What you're going to do? USDT, because, or maybe USDC, stablecoin, because the valuation of this USDT is rather stable compared to Ethereum or any other cryptocurrency because of the fluctuation. So people are quite smart in deciding that they want to use USDT or Tether. And okay. Previous slide, please. Previous slide. Okay. And this has been labeled and even Binance deposit. Can anyone tell me why a Binance deposit and OKX deposit is very important in this situation here? You can track, identify KYC information. The whole part of the scam case, from police report to identifying this wallet address and the victim name to sort of like an organized crime, the last leg of this is that we need to know who they have interacted with, and with this money that we have profiled, where is this bad guy's name? This is the intersection point that is very important for any prosecutor office who try to launch a case on the criminals. And this is why this information, we call it the off-ramping, means that you are trying to marry the on-chain data, which is the encrypted wallet address, with the off-chain data, which is the KYC information. This is to link up the whole part, and you try to charge somebody. Crystal and many other leading blockchain analytics firms are mainly providing this kind of analytics. Hopefully, it can be court admissible and to testify in the court as expert witness. You need this part here because based on my background dealing with Malaysian government, well, the judges told me that most of the judges are baby boomers. So it's very hard for them to understand the whole part of it. So with this here, and the expert witness will actually prove a case here. And also, these are virtual assets. Are they even property in the legal definition? There are many ways of the legal definition will have to sort of revised by the policymakers and the lawmakers. However, this is served as one of the basic evidence in terms of trying to illustrate where the funds have gone and where they came from. Okay, next please. So, big butchering scam, this is something that we have mentioned multiple times in this panel. And because I service the APAC business, so I talk to multiple law enforcement agencies. And this is nothing new compared to all the three panelists have mentioned. And it all sort of like linked back to this pig butchering scam, which is a very unique crime in the Southeast Asian / APAC business. So this will not happen in the European countries or the Americans. Probably you have like prostitution ring, you have other kind of crimes, but pig butchering scam is a very unique way of how people do bad things, specifically relating to like this crime. And you can see that one of the country that have suffered severely is also Japan. And you can see that based on our intel, which we have independent researcher, we can also tie back to this Baoli compound located in Myanmar. Next, please. Okay, I love to quote UNODC report. I'm also your fan. Okay, so these are the things that is happening in Japan, and I'm not going to go too much in depth. Next, please.
Oh, I think like some people cannot read that
Okay.
type. You might just want to make that point.
Okay, so in April 2023, there will be 19 Japanese fraud suspects were arrested in Cambodia and deported back to Japan, and 25 men has been extradited from Cambodia. So, and I give you a list of this information. It's not just what we think about, but these are also publicly available information.
Yeah, I think it's that top line that the Yakuza is sourcing increasing amounts of drugs from the Golden Triangle into Japan, I presume you're saying.
Yes, and of course the Yakuza is one of the main character here, and of course this is nothing. This is organized crime, and maybe can we go next slide, please? Okay, now next part is Hong Kong. Well, of course, the 14K triad has been quite famous, and they all often linked with the online casino. And of course, at the moment, if you think Singapore is the crypto king in this region, no, not anymore. They have moved to Hong Kong because the governance there is pretty lax, and because you would say that HKMA, the regulator, are quite forward-thinking. Okay. And of course, if you look into the Hong Kong regulation, they are starting to regulate stablecoins, and of course, we also have some traces of these ICO offerings established in the Dongmei scam compound. Is based in Myanmar, and is also known for their crypto fraud activities, human trafficking, and torture of traffic victims. And this is the recent case that is just about, say, last week, that Hong Kong police cracked down an OTC in Hong Kong and arrested 53 people involved in fraud and ML. Pretty much, it's been quite active in Hong Kong. Well, I brought a friend today from Taiwan, Charlie, and he deals with the CIB and the MGIB in Taiwan. And just give you a bit of a background where I deal with CIB as well. If you look into the 165 case, I think it was from John's report, right? Or Colonel, yes, Colonel Jeseda report. The 165 came from the scam call center. I think averagely the CIB is receiving about over hundreds of cases. So over a year, if they have about like 50,000 over cases. And it's all linked back to the romance scam, AKA the pig butchering scams in this region as well. And based on our report, we also identified that some of it is called the leasing group, runs the MW Casino. And also the main one is that, the leasing group, and also led by this Ming Ji Zhu, who is also running all this scam compound. Okay, then you're going to ask me that, okay, Jess, we got this data. Of course, we have 3 gentlemen before me presented in a much more detailed way. Their statistic is really great. What are we waiting for? So we have the MO, we have the analytics graph, and our legal law enforcement officers are ready. They know what is going on. So what are you waiting for? So as I mentioned earlier that during the layering, okay, is not as simple as when you do cash out, you will go all to Binance. Because as mentioned in the earlier day in the training, I also think that personally, I think that criminal groups are the early adopters of technology. Just before you want to catch them, they have pivoted and they have adopted new ways so that you don't find out. Okay, so they will not do a KYC with Binance because they know that if they want to cash out, they will have to submit their passport or their identification ID, and you will know where they stay. So they will go to the typical peer-to-peer service, aka hawala, you can use the old word, but these are the ways that they will do the crypto exchange. We call it the off-ramping part, where the money on chain, you can now liquidate into cash, okay? And this is a growing way for alternative international remittance because SWIFT will not entertain this kind of stuff, obviously. And of course, is replacing informal networks just like your hawala. It's an underground way of banking. And of course, it's outside the visible portion of blockchain analytics platform. What does that even mean, the third sentence? This is very crucial. Because when we try to do technology to label them, like Binance and OKX, obviously we have all the information, plus the off-chain information. Registration, are they licensed? If you run a company search, you can find the directors behind that. But how about peer-to-peer? Obviously, they are unlicensed. That means what? No KYC. What does it even mean? That means that most of this will just name as a private wallet. All you are getting here is just a line of alphanumeric that means no sense to you. Like, I'm sure Colonel Jessica, when you find this and you do the tracing part and you say, okay, this is a private wallet. They have 19 million on these wallet addresses. What can I do about that? It's not been labeled. And the investigation stops there. Then you start to do the mapping like what I in the beginning, Andre's graph. It still means nothing because it cannot convert into a case and let the prosecutor open a file. And this is why this information, we need double digging because you can't just use a normal way of signaling and attribution to just name it. It's all Binance and the centralized wallet. We already know. Okay, another thing, this is something that we found out online, is that this USDT changed for Singapore dollar, and I'm not sure you can pick up a red flag here, is that it is anonymous. Yes, we do not ask you for any documents, and we do not store and transfer your data to third parties. I don't know what that means, but it sounds really dodgy and fishy. And they are offering that. And because I read Chinese, the whole bottom part of it is that we buy USDT and BTC, Bitcoin, and we can change to ringgit, Sing dollar, Thai baht, RMB, Korean won, and Hong Kong dollar, and also Hui Yuan, which is one of the big scam case that link back to the KK compound. We also receive. And we are fast and effective. This is a full-fledged bank offering to me without KYC. It looks attractive to most of the illicit actors, of course, but not in the eye of Colonel Jessica, of course. But this is what they're offering in Singapore. So the next part is that people were asking, how can I differentiate this kind of service with a legit licensed operator? I was talking with a few analysts today in the office, United Nations office. The same thing is that until now, the criminals purposely make it so similar that you can't even differentiate. That is the problem. A lot of people just sign up blindly and they do KYC, but it's a fake KYC. But maybe they use the KYC and go and do other stuff. You don't know. So I think the best advice is that if you want to do a cryptocurrency exchange through a centralized exchange, best go back to the Securities Commission website and check, is this being licensed? And that is the most organic way. If not, DM me. Maybe I can tell you. Okay? This is what we help when we present to the Hong Kong police and HKMA. We do a screen. If you are very familiar with the Hong Kong map, this is one side is the government central area for the government police officer. We run a search within the 400 meter, no, actually 2 km, I think 2 km radius from this part, and we found all this in yellow is OTC desks, and the blue one is actually ATM machines. I'm not sure you can sense that this is something a bit alarming here, because these ATM and OTC desks are known for low-level KYC. Maybe they don't even ask you for anything. Imagine you go to a money changer at the airport. If it's below certain threshold, you just exchange money. Not sure this is good, but Colonel Jessica will not like it because you can't get KYC again, right? So again, when we are doing Hong Kong, we do some go shopping because we want to get the information. It's a very ironic thing that you can see that this laundry up, inside that is an ATM machine. How ironic that, you know, a laundry shop will have an ATM. What are they indicating here? And also, there's another one called the laundry shop that inside you also have the ATM machines. This is a running number, and that we did this in July. I'm sure now we can figure out more than 90s, okay? And again, like John mentioned in his report, you can see that is USDT, Tron, and Ethereum. USDT again. Especially, he mentioned multiple times stablecoin, because outside the whole region, this is as good as USD, but it's on chain. Because it's liquid, you can cash it out very fast. So if you have not seen an ATM, this is how it looks like. CoinUnit.io is like a franchise. They have ATM machines all over. And if I may just share that some of our investigation report, the on-ramping part is that it's from Hong Kong, and they abuse the system that the Major Legal Assistance Treaty is not quite developed. They off-ramp it in Taichung and Tainan because the regulation and the law enforcement is weak. They get away. They really get away with that.
So what do you mean, off-ramp it?
Off-ramp means you cash out. On-ramp, you cash in. You buy cryptocurrency, that means you're on-ramping it. Off-ramping, you're selling cryptocurrency. Right. But they do not want to do buying and selling in one line or one hop. They purposely go from multiple chain, multiple token that is very small amount, or there's no direct, no correlation with any scam, theft, stolen coin, wallet. But in fact, they were trying to confuse you so that you think it's a legit fund. This is why it's complicated. The three gentlemen have mentioned it multiple times. This is the complication in investigations. And this is still a growing case, a growing scenario that you might know the hacks about how to decrypt that, but doesn't mean that in the court of law you can actually prosecute and make that into a proper case. This is the real challenge of today. So you might want to look into this crypto ATM, Bitcoin ATM operator. Actually, I do go shopping and I just do my normal sportswear shopping in Mongkok. I can find like 10. The shopping complex I like to go is called the Forest, and they just sell climbing stuff, and I see it just next to mostly all the sportswear equipment, nice stores. It's so easy without KYC. I think this is quite alarming. And you can tell that if we do a wallet screening, we are just like WorldCheck, like you put into our database on a wallet address, we can tell you how much money they have. I'm not sure you can see that. Maybe if I can just show you that it's more than I think it's more than 6 figures on this Tron value. And again, it's USDT. Mainly when you use this kind of services is on USDT.
So what's one USDT worth?
One to one. One USDT is $1 USD dollar. So this, because stable coin, they don't fluctuate. That is the characteristic of this stable coin. Hence, this is a very easy instrument to use for either cashing in, cashing out, or laundered money. Okay. I will stop here because there's a lot of cases that we help law enforcement to do, but maybe I have simplified that there's a lot of challenges in terms of getting this as a proper supporting documents or evidence in court. Because if you figure out how they were doing it, it wasn't like this maybe like 3-4 years ago. This is a new MO they were discovering, the criminals, and maybe 2 years later they have another new way. So in this area, we need to keep on learning from the market. And like John, I also surf internet a lot. And I like YouTube, and because they are a lot of sharing. So, and of course, I like to read all the law enforcement report as well, and especially United Nations report. So that's it from Crystal. Thank you for your time. Back to you, Gwen.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't know if we're probably the more you know, the less you know in this particular case. But anyway, we've got a tiny bit of time for questions. So if anyone would like to ask a question, you're very welcome. The microphone is up over there. Just identify yourself and ask away. So I can see everyone. I think you've completely. People are sort of trying to digest a lot of information there. Maybe one thing, maybe Benedict or John, you might have a global view or a regional view, but of all these different forms of crypto, and then you've got the stable ones, which are only, I presume, just a few. But what are central banks of the region doing, and how does that fit with the global picture? I mean, this is truly the legitimization, I think, of crypto is being, and there's been a lot of talk. Cambodian central bank, Thai central bank was considering it, pulled back a bit. Thailand was going to get its first proper crypto exchange. I don't know where that's at now, but we haven't seen it sort of get eagerly embraced by central banks, but some in the world have. So, yep, that's right. Yep, that's okay.
Within the regional context specifically, obviously there's been a lot of excitement over the past few years with integrating cryptocurrencies, and as you mentioned, Gwen, there's a lot of sort of central bank currencies being discussed across many parts of the region, but increasingly we're seeing the majority of these central banks kind of taking a more conservative approach as they've maybe had some lessons to learn. But I just want to bring it back to Jessica's presentation, and specifically on these kind of unregulated service providers. A lot of acronyms being thrown around, right? So KYC, OTC, all these things that not necessarily everybody knows what it means.
So why don't you just
sure.
clarify KYC, know your customer?
So KYC and know your customer are traditional mechanisms used in banking,
right? Yes.
Right? So
you
provide your ID, the bank knows who you are, and therefore you can get banked. So in the case of a lot of what Jessica was talking about, there's situations, probably far too many situations, where service providers are operating either in a black and illegal or a gray, unlicensed, unauthorized, but still sort of permitted to function kind of a space. And as a result of that, they don't really necessarily need to ask you who you are. In fact, there are services that specialize in providing that anonymity to you. And so really, again, a proliferation of these types of services have been really congregating around Southeast Asia, all off of the back of this stable coin environment, all off of the back of transnational organized crime at scale across the region, and really kind of piggybacking and maybe even fueling a lot of these developments with respect to cyber-enabled fraud. So that's one thing. And then secondly, Jess also mentioned the groups like the Yakuza, other criminal groups who are increasingly sort of flocking into this Southeast Asia region to take advantage of the criminal environment and opportunities that are made available to them. It's not simply Japanese criminal groups like the Yakuza. We're increasingly seeing
triads,
a wide range of triad groups, South Korean organized crime, increasingly Indonesian criminal groups flocking to the Mekong, Vietnamese increasingly playing a big role, and ultimately the point being that business is good. And so we're not really expecting any dip in the market. And one thing I think that also I didn't mention so well in my presentation was that as the law enforcement, and specifically Chinese law enforcement presence in the region has been intensifying, it's forcing the existing groups who have remained to pivot, to diversify their targets, to diversify their capacities, their language ability, so on and so forth, as well as the technological integration that they are bringing in to enable them to kind of target more broadly and globally and scale this business up. One thing as well with respect to the comparison of the multi-billion-dollar drug business to this is that it's not only global, it's easier to target, it's far less risky, and it's far more lucrative. So as a result, we also anticipate that this is going to continue to expand in the region.
So far, no central bank in the Asian region has recognized or has crypto reserves?
Not that I would know, no. Unless you consider the USD valid, but USDT, but no.
Right. And I have one other question. Let's take an example like Shui Coco, which has been probably the most reported scam center and a massive operation, actually. And recently, some of you may know the operators of Shui Coco, which is just across the Myanmar border in Karen State, have decided to go public and trying to get the sympathy of the public. So they have invited in mainstream media. Al Jazeera has just done a very riveting documentary about the criminal kingpin who's now sitting in a jail in Bangkok, Sher Jae-jun, in Bangkok. And Chit Tu, the head of the border guard force, former border guard force, he claims he's reformed, is the head of the group that runs Shui Coco, has given interviews to Al Jazeera, BBC, Sky News. They've let these groups in. So they're clearly trying to portray themselves as a legitimate business, but we know from reports that there are billions of dollars being generated in Shui Coco. How are they monetizing that? How are they getting, is that in cash? Is it in US dollars? How's that feeding into the system? Do you think they're transferring it in crypto? How are you tracking, well, let's say UNODC, if you're looking at it, or Thai police, how are you trying to track that? I mean, oh, you're nodding, you know something.
If I can answer, maybe I know him in person, but I will explain from the my investigation in Thailand. So in Thailand, we have a lot of the ways that we can transfer money out of the country. We have a lot of the banks. You know that if you use Thai accounts, a lot of mobile bank accounts on your mobile phones, and you can open the bank easily by, you can open one after another. So in Thailand, we use the NDID, is a system that can identify yourself and send information among the banks. So if you can open one bank, and you can open more banks easily. So we try to stop and make stricter identification or KYC or EDD or enhanced due diligence for the bank, so that the identification of the bank account holder is restricted, not like before. So in recent days, we see a lot of the scammers when they use the money moves, it's come only 2 or 3 layers, and then after that it's convert into cryptocurrency by using the peer-to-peer, P2P. P2P is to buying the cryptocurrency through the platform like Binance, which is illegal in Thailand but still can be used in Thailand. I don't know why it's like that.
It's illegal in Thailand, but
it's illegal in Thailand.
It's like vaping.
So the idea is illegal in Thailand, but the authority, the regulator cannot enforce the law in Thailand because they're not in Thailand.
Right, I see.
I wonder why, if it's illegal, how they can peg to the bank accounts in Thailand. So that's a question that the police keep asking, and we try to have the new law that prevent P2P. I know that P2P sometimes is
P2P being peer-to-peer?
Peer-to-peer, yes. When they try to transfer the fiat money is the bank, the money in our mobile bank accounts into the cryptocurrency. So that's one way that we can transfer or take the money out of the Thailand.
Right.
Or maybe another way is to hawala.
Right.
It's like when you try to exchange the money. Okay, you say that I will take. It's like try to communicate with your peer outside the country, and you take some money to someone, and after that someone there give the money to the one that you want
Yeah,
to
so
give
you've
to.
actually got to have physical cash
You don't have to.
and put it in a suitcase to turn it into crypto.
No, not like that. So you have to transfer into the banks and make the peer-to-peer platform that similar like Binance. That's another way. Yeah, so the old traditional way is to take the bags of the cash, to the porous border of Thailand. Can
Right.
see a lot
Or
of
just
the
take your
porous-
garbage bags full
yeah,
of
yeah. So
cash.
you can
Yeah.
see a lot of land borders that porous is not
Right.
very.
No, it's
District-
2,400 kilometres, so we don't
Yeah,
expect
yeah,
you to
yeah.
have every inch
So
of it
that's
covered.
another way of trying to convert the money. And we can see even the big companies, now a lot of scammers, they open the big companies and they can sell goods and products and try to use that kind of activity to conceal or hidden the money laundering schemes. So there are different ways that we still have gaps to protect the money in Thailand. But we also think that a lot of the money come to Myanmar can convert back to Thailand. In the case like transnational one, we can find that because Thailand generally is more prosperous than our neighboring countries. So the criminals, when they got a lot of money from Thailand transferring to them, they don't know how to save money. They try to take the money back to buy property in Thailand. So we hope that some of the money gone maybe come back to Thailand also, but it's not the way that we can,
Track.
Yeah, can track.
Oh.
So that's why.
So you think a lot of it is going into property?
Yeah, go to property or maybe into cryptocurrency and a lot of forms of property assets. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And do either of you and ODC gentlemen have theories about how multiple billions of dollars are how they actually are getting it out of the scam centres into either crypto or banks or?
I mean, one thing that I would add is that, what's interesting about the way that this works, and I think you referred to it, is really how much in the open this actually is, right? I mean, we saw the photos up there of these, crypto ATMs or whatever you call them. And I've never seen one because I don't think you see them around here a lot, but in other countries of the region you do, right? And a lot of the services that are needed to run some of the things that Karan Jasada was just talking about, they're very openly advertised on different platforms on the internet, different chat groups and so forth, right? So a lot of this is really happening in front of everyone's eyes, but it's also part of a massive industry that's grown around the cryptocurrencies, right? So what we're seeing is, again, criminal groups using technology that's available to everyone. It's not something you don't have to, have a master's degree or anything to or be particularly, tech affiliate, close to technologies to be able to use a crypto wallet. It's not that difficult, right? That's different from, things like, the dark web, some more sophisticated, cybercrime related technologies that we've seen in the past, right? These are all things that are accessible to everyone, and that's what makes it so easy for criminal groups to use it for the purposes. So the openness at which this is used is something that we haven't really seen in other contexts before, and it's also what gives them so much space to expand it further, because these services, they will continue to be provided, they will continue to be used by more and more people in the future, and the criminal groups are basically just piggybacking on that.
Right, get you. Well, I think unless, okay, one last question and then we'll wind this up. So just identify yourself, Chris.
Hi, Chris McCarthy most recently from Cambodia, but now Bangkok. I do a lot of work with business chambers and international donors. Question is this. So it seems like things are going to get worse before they get better. At least that's the direction they appear to be headed in. I guess my question is, can you provide any foresight kind of analysis? Like, where does this go? What does it look like in the medium term? It certainly seems like, especially in Cambodia, it's captured a lot of people that are or at least adjacent to the elite and the ruling families. Also in Laos. So I'm just curious what is to be done and what does this look like in the short term before it maybe gets better?
So the question is, what is to be done? Wow. Okay. You're smiling,
I
Ben.
think if we knew it for sure, we'd all be out of a job here, except for Colonel Jasada maybe, because he'd be resolving it. Did you want to go?
So what needs to be done? I think we've done a lot of things, but we need to done another many things, because there is no single bullet for solutions for any of the cybercrime. I can tell you the story that any approach or any idea that we think that possible to counter these scams, whether it's on telecommunication or financial systems or the raising awareness or international cooperation. So we need to do all sorts of things. But in terms of our neighboring countries, the scam center in the country, I think now the media and news, they produce a lot of good coverage and good documentary about what's happening in our neighboring countries. And the world is keeping eyes on the region, our region, that the country, Thailand, and also neighboring country need to be more proactive and sincerely tackle the issues. You can see that Kun Gwen just mentioned that Al Jazeera, and you can see on the Thailand scoop about see-through and the standard one, they have a very good investigative documentary about what's happening in Cambodia. As I just mentioned, I went to Lyon Interpol and World Economic Forum and explain to them about what happened in the country. So I hope that the world will looking into the region, and in the country like Southeast Asia, maybe the peer pressure or keeping at the face may be something that can push pressure the government that not very sincere in tracking these issues can do much better. If you go to the country, maybe in my neighboring country, if you can see the big building, a lot of the motorcycle and the power generator and a lot of the Thai people, come, you can suspect that would be something suspicious, right? So I think if the officers or authorities there, or maybe the NGO or everyone can point to the place, and they need to identify it and search it, right? And also from the Thai side, we should have the center that we can track the communications, identifying the IP address and everything that return back to our neighboring countries to identify and crack down. So this kind of mechanism building up, I can see that building up, we can see a lot of progress. As I just mentioned that in the last few months, we can see a lot of rising crime trends. And I think that's one way we can look at is worsening. But another way we can also see that that's because a lot of people report crimes, and we can see a lot of money also. So once we do it, it's not just only doing something, but we also have more partners. So now, from my law enforcement perspective, I can see many partners now, comparing in the last 4 years. So now the banks become more like a police. They have their own investigative people who can do things proactively. And one bank, when they did it, they can show to other banks that, okay, we did it already, you should do so. So in the past, they just only combine into one group, and they don't really do something that need to be on the group. But the peer pressure, the public pressure from other sections ask them to do so. You can see that the regulators try to cut the wire, cut the cable along the borders. It's something really new, in the past 3 years, we asked them to do the same like this. They did, it's not legal, it's illegal, blah, blah, blah. But nowadays, they're very proactive in doing that. So that thing changed a little bit, and one day I hope that once the people more aware and all the service provider, they are more proactive in doing so, and all the authorities, regulators can do their jobs. So that would be the time that we're waiting for.
Right.
So now it's like ebb and flow all the time, and I hope that day would come soon.
Thank you, that's a good answer. But I can confirm from all these media crews visiting the border and inside to Sri Koko that the Thai signals have all been cut. The Thai internet service is no longer working just across the border inside Myanmar, and KNU's complaining about that too. And unfortunately, Shui Coco can afford so much Starlink power that they can run their vast, I mean, there are 60,000 people in Shui Coco and they can run it all off Starlink now, unfortunately, and I don't think the Thai police can disrupt that. But anyway, it was a very encouraging step that Thailand actually managed to get the providers to stop. And I think I'll give the last word to Benedict. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Gwen, and I think Kanjazada, it's a very good way of looking at it, and maybe I can just add just a little bit on the second part of the question, or maybe the first part, I'm not sure, on you know where this is going forward, because I think the underlying way that we see it is, and we mentioned it, I think all of us one way or the other, is it's going to get worse, as you say, it's going to get more, it's expanding. But also what we're seeing is more effective responses, at least short-term responses in different parts of the region, right? And that could be a specific country, like the Philippines, for example, taking some quite significant measures on the regulatory side, with the ban of the POGOs, of these offshore gambling licensing schemes. And we're going to see the same in other parts of the region, probably, right? What has happened in the past then, and I talked about it earlier a little bit, John also talked about it, is this element of jurisdiction shopping, right? Criminal groups moving on to other parts of the region where there's less of that enforcement pressure, and it's basically like a game of whack-a-mole, if you know it, where you hit one and then it disappears and it pops up somewhere else, right? And so we'll probably continue to see that going forward, and as new technologies, as this kind of service economy that we've talking about grows, even as these places and these groups move around, the issue will continue to grow. And the one thing though that, and I'll close with that, I think is that's encouraging to us, is that we're seeing increased attention to this issue, both within the region but also from outside the region. I think we've never seen as much, international discussions, whether it's countries in the region, in the broader region that were mentioned, Japan, Korea, and others, or whether it's countries further afield, whether it's in North America or in Europe, that show an increasing interest and increasing understanding that what is happening here in this region has a very real and very concrete impact on their own population and on their own interests. And what's happening is that many of these countries are starting to see, okay, how can we work with the countries in the region? How can we support them to ideally get to that level that Kunchasada was describing very aptly, is really needed across the region. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Well, thanks very much. I think on that note, I'd like to thank all our excellent panelists and all of you for coming and your attention. I know it was a lot to get our heads around, so appreciate the detail and the explanation. If you want to revisit this panel, it will be on FCCT's YouTube and Facebook pages. You might want to revisit it. So thank you very much all, and please keep an eye on our website and Facebook page for upcoming events. Thank you. Oh, actually, I should just say one thing. We've actually got a rare music night tomorrow night with a performer playing pop and rock. I think it's vocals and something else. So that might be, if you want to drop in for a drink, everyone's welcome. Thank you.